All right. Well, the NFL season may be over, but the Huddle and Flow podcast, it definitely isn't. We're still clearing our throats right here. Remember the Huddle and Flow podcast, brought to you by Intuit, proud makers of TurboTax, Mint, and QuickBooks. And I'm Steve White here with my guy, Jim Trotter, 2/3 of the Howard Mob. Of course, the other third is Thomas Warren, our producer on the ones and twos. JT, we just witnessed a beatdown in Tampa. It was not the competitive Super Bowl that we all thought.
No, not at all. I always thought Tampa had a chance, but I never thought, or what I had said going in is whoever wins, it would be a close game. But it just shows any Sunday, anything can happen. And it's what's funny is when we had Todd Bowles on last week, we asked him about Kansas City's offensive line, and what did he say? He said, "I'm not biting the cheese."
I'm not biting the cheese. They're fine.
Exactly. They
I'll
weren't
tell you
fine.
what, Jim, what they were doing to the offensive line was so similar to what the Patriots did to the Rams offensive line in the Super Bowl. Like, we saw the production of the rush off the edge, but preceding that, they were beating the hell out of those tackles. There were times when Bowles would line up Vita Vea at a wide defensive end. It was a 7 technique, right? The outside shoulder, the offensive tackle. And he was hammering him, just crushing him. And so you knew that was just kind of seasoning the meat. And then when it came time for the Chiefs to have to be a throw team, that's when Shaq Barrett and JPP and Ndamukong Suh just absolutely ate them up.
Oh, it was impressive, and I was happy for Coach Bowles. People focus so much on the offenses in this game. And even in Tampa, people wanted to focus on the Tom Brady story, which was a fairy tale ending for him, leaving New England after 20 seasons, getting this championship in his first year in Tampa. But for me, for Todd Bowles to do what he did, to put together a game plan that held Patrick Mahomes to his worst game as a pro. I mean, never in Patrick's 3 years as a starter had he ever gone without a touchdown, leading the offense to a touchdown. Never before had they lost a game by double digits. It was just an impressive performance. Game plan by Todd Bowles and execution by the players.
It was crazy. So I had a couple of coaches texting me during the game. They're like, Tampa's playing a too high shell when they're doubling up Tyreek wherever he goes. Quick game underneath. They can move the ball up and down the field all day. Quick game underneath. And Mahomes didn't have time to do it. And the Chiefs abandoned it. And people were stunned that they weren't bringing in an extra tight end to maybe help out those offensive tackles. So this was a case really where, again, in some ways it was like that Patriots-Rams game, and in some ways it was like the Seattle Broncos wipeout Super Bowl, because Kansas City, I mean, some of the penalties, some of just the absolute dumb plays, and the fact that those receivers did not help out Patrick Mahomes one bit. I mean, the drops that they had, it was like they picked the wrong time of the season to play their worst game, because it was they were bamboozled. But Jim, let's also flip it. Byron Leftwich was in his bag. That first touchdown to Gronk, where they sent all the motion right and they flipped Gronk back underneath to the left. That looked like a page out of Kansas City's playbook, and they just absolutely manipulated the hell out of the Chiefs' defensive tendencies.
Yeah, and as Gronk said afterwards, it's something that they had been setting up because they had not had him do that before. They had simply had him blocked down. He would stay there. So, no, Byron did a tremendous job. And yes, it was Byron and not Todd Bowles, as one reporter after the game asked Byron, "Hey, how did you shut down Patrick Mahomes?" And I just wanted to say, really? Really? Come on now. I know we all look alike, but come on.
Like, come on, man. I mean, that was, yeah, let's go there.
Typical of Byron, he handled it with poise and class. He didn't
was so
put person on blast.
He was so funny. He was like, "Oh, you're thinking of Todd. That's all good." Some other people would have been like, nope. We both probably would have been like, next question. So,
Exactly.
So Jim, I know we're talking about the Super Bowl, but a little bit later on in the podcast, we're bringing on NBA great Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors. And you and our producer, Thomas Warren, actually had a great conversation with him about a lot of the things he's doing on the court, what he's doing at the golf game, how he sponsored Howard University's golf program. So I just want to alert that Steph Curry's getting ready to come on this podcast. And it's fantastic. And I'm glad my guy Thomas Warren came on and absolutely killed it because, he's got that radio background. He's more than just a guy mixing things on the wheels of steel. But real quick, let's get back to this before we get to Steph. It's a conversation that's been had about the coach hiring thing. And we're not going to go into the obvious things about we had all the black coordinators there. But Sean Payton, really talked about it when we had him on the Huddle and Flow. And that is delaying the coach hiring process until after the Super Bowl. And to me, this is the greatest example of how you could do that. Because then, all these teams would have all these lead time to do any type of homework, research, whatever they needed to do on the coaches coaching in the Super Bowl. But I think Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles and, yes, Eric Bieniemy would have a better opportunity to get jobs if this process was slow played.
Steve, I'd like to think you're right, but I tend to believe, based on the history and what we've seen, that many of these clubs have their mind made up before the process ever even starts. And that's why I do agree with you. I think the process should be pushed back and interviews shouldn't start until after the Super Bowl. But the reality is, in my mind at least, is that it's not going to make a difference. What's funny to me is many of the coaches prior to the process beginning that we had identified with certain teams were the coaches who got hired.
Yeah.
So as much as owners come back and say, so-and-so was great in his interview or this, that, and the other, at the end of the day, those teams still went with the people that we had identified right up front. So that's why I say I don't know how you correct the process other than, as some are speculating, there may have to be legal action. And that's really what the impetus was back at the turn of the century in 2000, 2001, when Cyrus Mehri and Johnny Cochran threatened legal action against the NFL, which helped contribute to the adoption of the Rooney Rule. And over the next decade, we saw incremental improvement, and then we slipped backwards. And I hope that's not the case, but who knows? And the other thing that we're hearing now is more talk about these groups, whether it's the Fred Pollard Alliance or others, addressing league sponsors and asking the question of, during this time where supposedly we have this enlightenment, do you really want to deal with an organization that clearly has some discriminatory practices in terms of its hiring? Because objectively, you can put up blind resumes and it will show that some of these black candidates clearly are more qualified than their white counterparts who are getting jobs.
Well, 100%, Jim. It's not about changing the process. It's about changing the mentality. And we know how hard
Absolutely.
that is in society. All right, well, enough of this. Let's get to the good stuff here, Jim. Let's go ahead and bring in Steph Curry and just kind of a little caveat here. I was not here. I was down. I was actually up in the sky in a fueling plane over the Gulf of Mexico, a KC-135 fueling plane, which was like an incredibly cool experience, fueling a B-1 bomber that was going to partake in the flyover when this is recorded. And, as excited as I was to do that, hearing Jim and Thomas do this interview with Steph Curry is just a bomb. So let's go ahead and bring in Steph Curry.
We have another member of the Howard Mob who's going to be on the show today, Mr. Stephen Curry. We are excited to have him in. I got to tell the backstory. Steph pledged to relaunch the Howard Golf Program, which had been dormant for a couple of decades or more. And the minute he did that, Steve and I both said, we got to get Steph on the show. We got to talk about it because everyone knows we are all about Howard. So, Steph, first we want to say welcome to the show. Thank you for all you do. And I've read different stories about how it all came together that you helped relaunch Howard's golf program. So let's hear from you. Tell us how it came about.
It was kind of just a genuine introduction to some current students at the time at Howard. I was producing a documentary with my production company, my media company, Unanimous. And we were kind of on the road a lot of different places, doing screenings for the documentary. And we wanted to kind of bring it to a crescendo at a place that meant a lot to some of the people on my team, and Howard was the pick. And so we went and did a screening there and had a panel Q&A discussion. The documentary was called Emmanuel, and we went into campus and I did the screening, invited a bunch of students, faculty, staff, and I actually got to be there when we were playing the Wizards, I think the day after. And so right after the screening and the Q&A, some students came down to the front, and they were really excited about kind of talking about some ideas that they had, what they were interested in, if there was ways to, create some business opportunities or some internships or things like that. So I kind of went down the road talking to each student. We had shoe designers, we had tech guys and girls, we had, athletes. And then I got to Otis Ferguson IV, who was talking about, he was a golfer. He loved to play. He's on the club team at Howard, and he was trying to figure out a way to bring the Division I program back. I can't remember exactly how many years it was since it was gone, but that was his mission. And obviously he's talking golf and he was talking Howard, and it kind of sparked my interest. So I took that nugget, took his number and an email down. And about a month or two later, I said, hey, I got a idea and some energy around we're actually making this a reality. And next thing you know, we got I put some resources in, investment down. We're working towards an endowment now so that we can create scholarships in perpetuity for these student athletes on the men's and women's side, and introducing golf to to new people in terms of opportunity that one creates scholarships like you said, but the goal is to get somebody on the PGA or the LPGA tour eventually and get some more representation out there. So that's the goal.
For you, Steph, I just wonder, when you look at what this means to the university, what this means to the students who are going to have an opportunity now to participate on this team, what does that mean to you to see how important that is to them and how big that is to them?
I mean, it's huge. I grew up playing the game. My dad introduced it to me, and obviously everybody knows he was a basketball player, and I know how much sports teaches you about character and work ethic and discipline, and working in team environments. Golf has taught me so much about myself as well, and it's been a huge part of introducing me to different people from different walks of life. And my whole goal, when I came into this level, was to find a way to grow not only the game of basketball, but the game of golf in a very authentic way that I feel like I could lend a voice to, and to kind of reach back into the grassroots level to introduce the game. The people that might not really know anything about it, but have the talent, the interest, and can develop the passion, the skill set to do it at the elementary, high school level, and potentially at the college or professional level. And so for me, one, it's a conduit to education. It's a huge opportunity to have like a North Star of, golf can open up so many doors. We just need access. We just need, that support and like a sense of resources that can kind of, build in the gap for where a lot of kids get left. And for me, that means so much to have, Howard, and they're decked out in the gear. They're super talented. We have an amazing coach, Sam Purrier, who's doing leading the charge, and that's the vision. And then we can work our way back to say, how can we get more kids into these type of opportunities?
Steph, Tom is going to talk to you about coaching in a sec, but I wanted to ask, you said something. You said golf taught you so much about yourself. What did it teach you?
Patience, discipline, perseverance. I think it's one of those games that's you can never master. As much as time as I put into the game of basketball and perfecting my craft, there is certain things that you can't control. And when you get out on the golf course, it's just you and what's going on between the ears. I mean, there's that competitive environment as well when you play with other people, but it's still just you and your own thoughts and your own mentality that you have to master. And for me, that's a never-ending journey. And so, I felt like it gave me, something to look forward to, and I could get my competitive juices flowing in a different type of atmosphere. that's helped me in a lot of different areas, not just on the basketball court, but just being able to, meet different people and be able to talk to them and level to them, because golf is kind of like that unifier. People from all walks of life love to play, and it's kind of gone from there.
You mentioned Steph Puryear earlier. I talked to him earlier, and he couldn't sing your praises enough. He said not only it's not one of those partnerships where it's just you write a check and that's it. He said you've been very hands-on. You've been in communication. If you go to the website, you see the team. They're decked out in all the SC30 gear. So he said that's part of it. It's looking professional. So he was thankful that the team have outfits to look that way, because that's part of it.
Right.
He also said that the relationship has been good, that it's been something that's been continuous and ongoing. So I wonder, from your side, how has the relationship been, and how do you see it progressing from here?
It's been great so far. It's everything you just said. And, just the excitement and the awareness of how this golf program can hopefully create, again, it's the scholarship aspect of it and great education. But at the HBCU level, obviously Howard, first and foremost in this respect, but across the HBCU kind of pipeline, that this can be a template for other, universities stepping up in this respect and kind of pouring into their golf programs, which might be kind of on the back burner in a lot of people's, priority lists. And so, Sam's done an unbelievable job with his track record and his experience at a lot of different colleges, bringing it to Howard, trying to create a first-class program that, takes the service of what, a student athlete and a golfer can expect at this level, and not missing any detail in there. And so we kind of started with, like you said, the gear, the Curry brand gear, decked them out in that, and make them feel special like they should. From Callaway's perspective, we were able to have a custom fitting session, which, most of those student athletes hadn't had that experience. And so you think about the difference in terms of opportunity, from kids at 4, 5, 6 years old to 18, 19 going into their freshman year of college. They had never experienced that. And it's a huge difference maker in terms of confidence and preparedness for that next level. So we've created a lot of energy around that. Now there's so many people calling, like, how can I get involved? What can we do to help uplift the program? You saw at the match that we had with myself, Charles Barkley, Peyton Manning, and Phil Mickelson. We all were raising money for HBCUs across the board, and that was putting the HBCUs on the map, and it's just more so like creating that ecosystem of everybody wanting to pour in and finding out how they can actually make an impact. And so it's been awesome. I've heard nothing but great things about how the kids have experienced it so far, and we're just getting started. This is literally the first year, so it's going to get better.
And one thing that Coach mentioned also was, in seeing the common thread between both of you guys, is the foundation that can get the program thriving and reach those longer term big picture goals is winning. So from your side, he said, if you win, that can be the start to get the attention and then have the substance of winning to be able to then grow. Do you see it the same way?
No doubt. First you have to prove that this is serious, this is a priority. I think we started to do that. And to your point, we want to be competitive. We want to be, a top tier destination, for the most talented golfers coming out of high school. And really feel like that's not a pipe dream, that's a true reality in terms of kind of flipping the collegiate golf landscape on its head a little bit. And so
I love that, man. I love hearing that.
There's even this past summer in the basketball world, there was some 5-star recruits that were thinking, hey, HBCUs might be the way to go. They're going to find me wherever I'm at. Same thing can happen in golf. And you kind of can look at just how amazing Howard is in terms of how they, uplift their students and, create this level of excellence that can be poured in as well in terms of, what our expectations are as a program. And we obviously have an amazing coach that's been in some other, top tier programs that know what it takes to win at that level. So that's the goal. We ain't just doing this yet just to be there, being competitive, being successful.
Titles.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that. Steph, we're going to get to those elite players in a minute, but first I want to ask you, we've had Larry Fitzgerald on the show, and Larry's one of those people like you who has golfed with President Obama. And Larry told us that President Obama is a sneaky trash talker, but he's good. So I wanted to ask you, rate his trash talking and tell us a story about one of his best trash talking sessions.
He's sneaky because his cadence with his words, right? He's an amazing storyteller, and so he doesn't switch it up when he's on a golf course. He's kind of that cool, mellow. He draws you in, and his game is decent enough that he's not embarrassing himself out there on the course. He can talk because he's going to manage his way around the course. But I think the first time we played him, we were just getting to know each other, and I was just getting comfortable around President Obama, and I think he wanted to kind of break the ice a little bit because I was riding in his cart with him, and I talked to, or I guess Michelle had reached out to him before the round and told him to give me a message that if I wanted to talk trash about President Obama, that I should go straight for the ears. I should go straight for the ears, just trash the big ears nonstop, and that's the one that could get under the skin a little bit. And so he was humble enough to pass that on to me, knowing that it was going to press the red button, and she was giving me some ammo. So that might speak to his confidence as a trash talker. So he's going to give me material, knowing that he had some other stuff in the bag. So that says a lot.
Did you go for it? Did you hit him on the ears?
I waited to the back nine though. I didn't want to get kicked off the course too quick.
By the way, who won?
So we played twice. The first time I was on his team and we were playing against my dad and Ray Allen. My dad and Ray Allen, they won. And the second time I was on against him and we got the dub. So it's always fun playing with him, no matter where we're at. And obviously he's got a little bit more free time now, so hopefully we can keep it going.
I'm curious, Steph, if you could play golf with one person, one round, living or dead, who would that one person be?
Tiger, for sure. It just obviously is kind of a hero of mine growing up, and to know like all he's been through over the course of his career and all the highs and lows and all that, I feel like that would be an amazing 4 or 5 hours out there to kind of hear his story from his lens. There's a lot of content out there now about him and around him, but I love to hear it from his words. So and to see him hit amazing golf shots all day, but that'd be my guy.
I'm actually surprised you guys haven't linked up.
No, we've talked a couple of times. He actually called me out the blue back in 2015 during our playoff run in the second round against who we were playing, Memphis. And we were down 2-1, and my PR director for the Warriors, I was leaving practice in between game 3 and 4, and I just won my first MVP, so that was kind of a talking point. But we were down in the series, and he said, "Hey, if this Florida number calls you, you might want to answer it." And I was like, "All right." So he called me about an hour later, and it was the biggest pep talk of all time, just out of the blue. He spoke some life into our comeback during that round, and he told me, I said, I'm ready for it. I know we're gonna get it done. And he dropped the mic at the end of the call. He's like, "Prove it," and then just hung up.
Oh, nice.
You don't get no better than that.
No, get no better than that. So he lit the fire under me for sure.
Man, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. We talk a lot on the show about player activism, and you've been one of the voices in the NBA that's been on the forefront of that. But I noticed on February 3rd, you sent out a tweet from the LA Times. It was a headline that read, "No league was more essential to the social justice movement in 2020 than the WNBA." So I'm interested from your perspective as a father of 2 daughters, as a player in the NBA that has a voice and a platform, how much influence of what they're doing impacts you and what you do?
A lot. I mean, it seems they're very proactive in using their voice and being collective and unified across all the different teams, and they're just being very, very bold and courageous about speaking on what they believe, taking a stand on things, no matter what the consequences might be. And, I feel like they're a model across the board for what it means for athletes to be outspoken, to use their platforms, to be selfless in that respect, and to be consistent with it. So that for me was worth a shout out and more, based on not just last year, but we go, years and years back about equal pay, conversations and debates on that and that topic, and then leading into social justice and things that happened over the last 18 months. So like you said, as a father of an 8 and 5-year-old girl who aren't really interested in basketball as of yet, but have models to look up to in terms of strong, courageous women that don't fit in a certain lane. They speak on what they believe, and I think it makes a huge impact across the board for sure.
That's a beautiful thing. What's interesting, Steph, is we've seen athletes become more vocal after Cap took a knee in 2016. Even from the Warriors standpoint, I know that you were always socially conscious, but even among Warriors and yourself, we started to hear you guys speak about things more. I'm wondering, how much did that moment and what he did awaken something inside you and other athletes?
I think it was huge. And obviously how polarizing it was in terms of what his message was in that moment, and it not being, misconstrued or taken away from him and kind of reconfigured to other narratives and things like that. That was what kind of was the resolution. It's like you can control only so much in that respect, but you have to stay true to what you believe and who you are and just act on it. All the greatest ideas and the greatest conversations, unless there's action behind it, then it's kind of a moot point. And so that was a huge message. And you can kind of even go back to generations of past. Like you said, there's been a huge movement of player activism, and I think the biggest thing is just being authentic to what you actually believe. There's a temptation to want to poke your head and your nose into every single conversation and argument, and that's okay if you're well versed and knowledgeable about it and understand, what you're trying to impact or influence in those in particular conversations. And for me, that's the rule of thumb. If you're knowledgeable about it, if you have a network of people that you can tap into to ask the right questions, to get the right information, for me, being able to know that there's people on the ground and many a community across the country that are doing the work, especially in social justice and inequality, that they've been doing that's their life's blood work, then we can uplift those, leaders and organizations and, lend awareness and resources financially, manpower, whatever it is, we can influence it that way as well. Even up to policy issues, Capitol Hill and all that type of stuff. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but being knowledgeable about it, not just saying stuff to say it, is huge.
And someone else that's knowledgeable and vocal is your coach, Steve Kerr. So interested from your perspective, what kind of conversations do you have talking about social issues? Because he's known to be a thoughtful guy far outside of basketball. And so what is it like to play for a coach who is supportive of his players, being vocal and having those interests to want to get involved in? And then what kind of conversations do you two have about what's happening in the world?
A lot. I think the biggest thing is just there's a perspective on a daily that we're blessed to play this game at the highest level and get to be paid handsomely to put the ball in the basket. And, with that comes a sense of responsibility, of speaking your truth and speaking out for those that can't, speak for themselves and using our platform. And he does foster some conversations, or a lot of conversations within our team, during film sessions, during random meetings throughout the year, that we kind of break down issues that might be happening. Or again, it's the perspective that we're not in we're in a bubble in our own world, but we're not. We're still connected to, our brothers and sisters to the left and right. And so for us to be able to not lose sight of that is huge. And obviously him, Doc Rivers, Greg Popovich, coaches across the board, Lloyd Pierce in Atlanta, who's running the coaches union, and doing a lot of work over this last year. It's a environment where we all try to empower each other and support each other in that. And that means a lot to not feel like you're on an island by yourself. And that people understand that, you want to be helpful, but maybe find out what the right way to do it is.
To that point, Steph, do you think this is a moment or a movement?
I mean, it's always been a movement. I think it's just more so that it's not just a movement within our own communities, that it's, we call them the allies, right? And that there's, people on the other side that are listening and hearing and holding themselves accountable to how they can make change and help turn this into what I feel like is different. I feel like it's more palpable and that there's more conversation and more action. Time will tell. Hopefully in our lifetime, we do see a better reality for our kids and future generations in that respect. But I feel like we're doing what we can within our power to stay true to that mission and to that movement, if you will. But I don't know. I always choose hope. At the end of the day, there's always that one piece where you can say, "Oh, things are never going to change," and we're just spinning our legs on the wheel. I always choose hope that we are moving in the right direction, no matter how long it takes.
Steph, we've got a little over 5 minutes left because I know you've got a hard out here. So let's have a little fun for a minute, football-wise. We look at Tom Brady, 10 Super Bowls, 43 years old this year, playing tremendous. Talks about maybe even playing until he's 50. You're about a decade younger than Tom Brady. How long can you see yourself playing?
It's a great question. I mean, it's different sports, different position. I mean, my pops is always the barometer for me. He played 16 years until he was 38, and I got to see how his body changed over the years, especially those last 6, and all the work that went into getting ready for a season. I'm about to be 33 next month. Feel really, really good, fresh, able to still do everything I want to do on the court. So if I could get to like pushing 40 with it and still be impactful on the court, I feel like that's a win in basketball. Is that straight up and down? You can't hide anywhere when you're out there. Might be a little different conversation, but to Tom's point, just getting your body where you go out on your own terms is the goal. However long or however many years that is. So that's pushing 40 would be amazing. To answer.
And a couple more championships in there too, I bet.
Word up. That's right.
Absolutely.
All right. So football still. So you're a big Panthers fan. So I'm curious though, you've been in the Bay for a minute. Why are you not a 49ers fan at this point?
I just can't. I can't do it.
Come on, Steph.
Is it the colors? What is it?
It's just growing up, going to Bank of America Stadium, watching Jake Delhomme and Steve Smith and Sim Muhammad, Tim Biakabatuka. I can go down the list of all my favorite Panthers. I can't. Sam Mills, Thomas Davis. I can't let that go. And I can't be a two team type of guy. I'll root for them. I'll go to the game. I'll be Bay Area pride when they win. But when the Panthers come out to the Bay, you know what side of the stadium I'm going to be on. So that's it.
All right. Speaking of favorites, favorite NFL player to watch and why? Right
now?
Yep.
Mahomes for sure. Just
why?
See a lot of myself in him, and obviously there's been a lot of comparisons. Just that creativity, you can't blink or you'll miss something special. And I just love his confidence. When he knows at any point he can do something special. He's always got options. He's got a way to make a play using his feet or his arm, sidearm pass, whatever it is. He's surrounded by some weapons and he knows how to use them. So it's that guy's he's special. He's generational talent, obviously. So love watching him.
Steph, when we talk about players such as yourself, Mahomes, Brady, whoever, Fitzgerald, we're talking about greatness. Is there a common thread through all of you, great players, that maybe we on the outside don't see or don't know?
I think just the common knowledge of how hard or how much hard work it takes to get to that level and sustain it, and the pressures that you feel on a daily to kind of keep doubling down on that. I say we are our own worst enemy with our own expectations at times, and there's nothing anybody that can say about you or about how you played or who you are. We're our biggest critics, and so the work that goes into it and the sacrifice that you have to make to be at that level, I think we it's kind of an unspoken understanding and an appreciation for what that means. Because there's a lot of ways that people have fallen off, and the point about it is when we were kids, I wasn't ever the most talented guy. And there's always people that were more developed, better shooters, whatever. But I kept working at it, and the difference of opportunity there has kind of manifests itself when you get to this level, and you kind of recognize that in those type of people.
Thomas has got a fun one for music, and then I'll wrap it up, bring it full circle.
So Jim's not a hip hop guy, so this is on me. All right. So versus who won the battle, E40 versus Too Short?
Ooh.
Come on. I know who I think won. Who do you think won?
Well, they were making that joke Lil Jon won, right? Because he had all the beats and the features. Now, courtside 40 to me, he definitely won. And I think he won because I've never seen anybody drink so much and still maintain composure on the verse.
A lot of brown liquor was consumed.
A lot of that, and a lot of his own liquor too. He got his own label, so y'all gotta check those out. And then the antics and the mannerisms and the dance. And I actually I felt so inspired. I had to go dress up like him and pull out some of the footwork. So he definitely won.
Okay. Well, Steph, let me bring this full circle because I know you got to run. How do we, graduates of HBCU and that family, get elite athletes such as yourself to start passing on the Davidsons and the UCLAs and the Kentuckys and signing up for the Howards, the A&Ts, the Hamptons, and others?
I mean, we're all doing it, I guess, in terms of continue to use your platforms to speak on the great things that are happening. Speaking about your experiences there, obviously I didn't go to Howard or an HBCU, but if, cross paths with so many people that speak so highly of their experience there, what has made them successful in life. And for us, it's just about continuing to get that word out that this is a real opportunity, a real life-changing, type of situation and then decision that is only going to continue to get better. So I think that wave has started on the national, level from networks that might not that weren't talking about HBCUs before 2020. So it's going to continue to double down on that. And I'm going to continue to wave the flag from afar and yeah. Well, when you see the Bison golf team on Golf Channel chasing the national championship, that's gonna be it right there.
I love that, man. Well, look, I want to say on behalf of Thomas, on behalf of my co-host Steve Weish, the Howard family, we want to say thank you to you for all you've done for the golf program, for the basketball team in terms of the Curry 8s being supplied to them, and also want to thank you and your wife for your Eat, Learn, Play Foundation for all the work that you're doing there. So much respect, much props, and we appreciate you being on the Huddle and Flow, man.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. What is it, HU?
HU, you know.
It is.
You know.
You hit it with us. I like it.
Steve, what an impressive guy. Look, I grew up in the Bay Area. I used to sit in those $5 seats back in the day up in the Oakland Coliseum Arena and watch Joe Barry Carroll and the Warriors and whatnot. So, I'm not hiding my fandom here as it relates to the Golden State Warriors. But, Steph makes it easy to be a fan of not only the team, but him and his family in terms of all the work that they do in the community, trying to make situations better, and him using his platform to try and make positive change in this country. And for our listeners, you and I both, the minute we heard that he was going to sponsor the Howard University golf team and resurrect that program after more than two decades of being dormant, we had to bring him in, and we had to have him with us and show some love to him and let him know that we consider him an honorary Bison. So it was just an enjoyable time for me. I could have talked to him all night.
And I love the mad respect for guys like him and Chris Paul and all of these
Yes,
players who didn't attend HBCUs but are putting so much into HBCU programs. Because we talk about Steph sponsoring a golf program. What's the big deal with that? Yes, okay, great. It's an extracurricular activity for those student athletes up at Howard. But also when they get to the real world,
scholarships for those kids,
scholarships, extracurricular. But Jim, as you know, because you're a big golfer, there's a whole lot of deals that get brokered on the golf course.
Oh.
So even if these guys, don't hit the PGA Tour, they are now going to be able to possibly put themselves in position to make the proper connections and just all love to some of the. Go ahead,
Can I tell you this quick story real quick? I was not a golfer, hadn't played. Obviously, I didn't have time, didn't have money at one point to play. I'm covering the NBA. I'm sitting baseline one day next to the legendary Jim Hill, as you know, the broadcaster up in LA. And Jim says to me, "Do you play golf?" And I said, "No, I don't." He said, "You need to take up the sport." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because that's where deals get done. That's where you have access to players." And then he starts telling me about guys he's been on the course with, from Marcus Allen on down. And it was at that point I knew I've got to take this sport up. And I did. And now I love it for other reasons. But you're absolutely right. If you go to an NFL player, NBA, baseball, whatever, and say, "Hey, let's play around," they are down to go out on the golf course. So it's a secret for young reporters out there. Take it up.
All right. Well, Jim, as we get out of here, this has been an absolutely incredible run of sorrow and loss for us personally, for those in the sports world. And as we just learned overnight on Monday, Marty Schottenheimer, someone you're close with, he finally lost his battle to Alzheimer's. We knew this was coming when they moved him into hospice a past couple of days ago, but you were close to him. You've been on the golf course with him many times. I would just love for you to say some kind words about your friend.
Oh, I don't know that I have the words. I think about Marty and how he always used to tell us he was an English major, and he would command a room with his presence and his voice. The thing I remember about Marty most is, you hear these stories about him from afar, him being a hard ass, a control freak, all those kind of things. And I remember the Chargers hired him as head coach. And at that time, my relationship with the organization wasn't necessarily the greatest because I was a beat writer and I was writing things that maybe they didn't want to see or hear. And so I right away, my antenna was up with Marty, and I really wasn't sure if he was someone to be trusted or not. And long story short, we had an incident where I felt like he had deceived me a little bit. And he and I had our coming to Jesus moment where we laid out what our expectations were of each other. And without going into specifics, at the end of that, all I know is that every time I called him with something controversial that I had found out and I knew to be true, he never once lied to me. And as a beat writer, that's all you can ask for out of anyone associated with an organization is you don't have to give me information, but just don't lie to me. And Marty was not that guy. And we had conversations about family, about football, and even at times about his faith. And I can say to you, I'm going to miss him. Going to miss him a lot. I spent time with his family down in North Carolina at their home with he and his lovely wife, Pat, who was like the matriarch of all NFL wives. And his son, Brian, well, and his daughter, Kristen. He's got 4 grandkids he's survived by. And I just hope he's at peace.
Jim, well said. The NFL loses another legend. And just quickly as we sign off, we lost a dear one at NFL Network and NFL Media and Chris Wesseling. Just a wonderful man, a brother to all of us. He had battled cancer for a long time and fought like nobody. I'd seen fight. I'm glad that he and his wife, Lakeisha, were able to have their son, Link. So his legacy will live on. This is a brutal blow, and we've lost a lot. We lost Vaughn McClure from ESPN. We've lost Sekou Smith from NBA TV, Marty, Chris Wesseling, and Jim, the one that, none is greater than the other, but losing Pedro Gomez, a brother of ours from ESPN, someone I work with in Miami, someone who we've probably both had dinner with a million times. The ultimate reminder to just please love everybody up and be kind to everyone, because this is a fleeting existence. Where hopefully you can leave a lot of positive memories, because we're all hurting pretty badly right now.
No question. Let me tell you a quick story about Pedro. When I came to San Diego, I'd never been here before. I came as a high school writer. Pedro was already here covering one of our high school zones. Didn't know him from Adam. And Pedro says to me, "Do you have a place to stay?" I said, "No, I'm at the hotel." He says, "Why don't you stay at my place?" Didn't know me from anyone. I'm a stranger. And he said, "Why don't you stay at my place until you find a place?" And I did. And that's the kind of guy that Pedro was, man.
100%.
Opened up his heart and his arms to everyone. And I'm just devastated. I told my wife about it. She knew him. He was just a loving man, So, man, we've lost so many people recently.
Just gutted.
Yeah.
Just gutted. Well, Jim, we got to go ahead and button this episode up. So again, love every people, everybody. Jim, you take us home. It's a great podcast. And just really appreciate our guy, Thomas Warren, again, stepping in and just doing a great job. So Jim, why don't you go ahead and bring us home?
Yeah. Once again, we thank you for subscribing to the podcast. We thank you for listening. Please continue to leave your suggestions as to who you'd like to hear from, what you'd like us to discuss. And that way we can continue to give you more of what you're funkin' for.
This is the Huddle Flow podcast, brought to you by Intuit, the proud makers of TurboTax, QuickBooks, and Mint. I'm Steve Weich. We're Jim Trotter and Thomas Warren. We are the Howard Mob, and we are out.